Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Last week was a little bit of a light content week. I actually had two videos that I was working on that I just didn't get done for both Thursday and Friday, and I decided to hold them off for this week instead. Just some things going on. Some of you may be familiar with the situation with my mother, but just a few things going on behind the scenes that really distracted me. I had to take a day off entirely just to kind of unwind, but I'm feeling a little bit refreshed after my usual day off stream, as well as that extra day, and just knowing that I already have a few things done for the week gives me a little bit of relief. But I actually want to get into this Q&A ASAP. I just woke up from a nap and I'm so sleepy. Day off means I actually get to take naps at least one day out of the week. So let's get on to the Q&A real quick. No Magic Spoon sponsor this week. However, got to do the usual shout out. Thanks to Steel Series for sponsoring. Don't forget, ! Steel Series when you're in my Twitch chat, or it's under like every YouTube video with a 12% discount code. If you ever need to ask me a question about Steel Series stuff, feel free to. I haven't used every single product, but I'm pretty knowledgeable about most of it, and they've been supporting me for a while. And of course, the Patreon. I don't lock any content behind my Patreon. I just don't think it makes sense, but it's there for anyone who does want to support the channel. But with that, let's get on to the Q&A, shall we? Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Happy. Hi. Excuse me. It may take me a few questions to like clear my throat after waking up. Hope your weekend was good. Yeah, it was. There's a lot of vitriol towards how 14 does its content in the sense that its many systems seem built with the idea that let you play for 2 to 3 hours a day over the course of a week, and you're up to pace with everything: weekly tome, savage loot, or weekly lockout, etc. Many of the comments I see of players wanting the game to give me more of a reason to play. I've said the exact same thing. But am I wrong for thinking that the sentiment would hurt players like me who have a limited time to play due to work and wanting to play other games? Let me actually finish reading, because I know what my answer is going to be, but let me finish reading. Without feeling behind, I've been playing since Heaven's Word and still pretty happy with 14 currently, as it's one of the few games I feel respects my time, but I've been called a dad gamer for this. So I think that there is a difference in the way that some people convey wanting more of a reason to play. A great example, I've given one of my more reasons to play to be that I would like options to grind the relic that aren't just tomes. Like, I think the tomes are great. They're there for people who only have a little bit of time to play, and they can log in a few times a week, make some progress, and actually feel good about the time they've spent. But in terms of actually kind of working towards a goal, they're very unsatisfying, very unfulfilling. And instead, it's nice to kind of being able to like rally a community or be a part of something. A great example is the Light Farm. Reddit had to come up with an entire website that effectively like tracks what's in bonus, and players can report it. And, you know, on top of that, some players could just then log in daily and they could still do the kind of daily things they would do and make some progress. So it has a little bit of everything. But if you just wanted to grind something out and have more of a reason to, a more satisfying and gratifying reason to play on one given day, you could, but that in no way harms the players that are only playing 2 to 3 hours a day a few times a week. That's my definition of giving people reasons to play. It's about placing the proper incentive / gratification behind activities without inherently harming the people who can only play a few hours a day. Great example. Some people want to be able to gear alts. Now, people who play 2 to 3 hours a day and maybe they just don't do Savage. If they had something that was closer to being within their grasp to actually progress their character, that was feasible to do within that time, they might be able to say one of those nights like, hey, I'm going to do this thing instead. But the people who instead want to be playing more than that, they instead have these extra activities that now they can, and when I say gear alts, by the way, I mean alternate jobs, not alternate characters, but that could be a whole nother discussion. They could, they could have the option to play more and make that progress that's more meaningful to them. So having things like whatever they're going to do with the variant dungeon, quantum, whatever systems they're going to have in place, I want there to be some sense of progression that a player feels good having. And then if a player decides to grind out all the gear, do all this, and then complain, once we do that, and I say we because I think I am in that play that much kind of category, it's kind of just easier to look at that and be like, bro, you play like 10 hours a day. Like, you've done a lot. Like, maybe you just need to play a little bit less. Like, as opposed to somebody like, I'll log in for 7.3 patch day and I'll actually just finish everything almost in that one day from one long play session. Even if I split that up to several play sessions of 2 to 3 hours a week. You know what I mean? It's like there's basically almost nothing for me to sink my teeth into. The only thing that there was actually the treasure map grind. And I got my Yan mount already. I do your map, your loot instead of free-for-all parties. My map got a Yan and I've gotten it. I'll still run those parties because I want to make gil and I want to do things with my community. And I just find them kind of fun to do in general. But, you know, that was like the only activity that had any sort of longevity to it. And I just want to look at Final Fantasy XIV and think, I do have a reason to log in. And I actually, quite frankly, I do. I started doing big fishing and there are other like long-term goals I could work on. But I have to weigh that against everything else I could be doing or want to do. I've been on a real big old school RuneScape kick. And one of my videos this week is going to be my first impressions of old school RuneScape. And that's been one of those games that like, it does so much less in the gameplay department in terms of gratification, but it provides me with a lot of really good feeling objectives to go after. That progress my character in some sort of vertical and horizontal way at the same time. And I'm not saying 14 needs to have anything like that. I don't think if 14 players could handle, the majority of them could handle doing old school RuneScape for like, if as like their main game at this point and at this day and age. But especially if you had to have the level of involvement that 14 has, like OSRS only works because you can like do like the minimum number of clicks and actually get a lot of stuff done. But the idea is still that I feel a motivation to log in, and I feel like 14 is lacking that particular thing. And by having more reasons to play, you get more people who are just satisfied logging in. Sometimes they're even just satisfied to log in and be social because the people they want to be social with feel like they have multiple reasons to log in. And that's really another key aspect that doesn't really get talked about. Is just you'd be like, I love this game. You log in, your 3 friends that are playing don't really feel like playing. So you're like, oh, I don't really feel like playing either. And, you know, that waterfalls, cascades, and that's where you get where we are now. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. I'm thinking about the positive and the about the game question was more about the extremity of the reaction. Like a lot of people just want 14 to be amazing or terrible, not just a fine game that needs improvement. Your channel gets a bit more level feeling response of critique than just reading off hot takes from the forums. So yeah, okay. I mean, that's what I aim to do. But I do think that it is important to recognize that just because I'm saying things differently and I have a way of speaking that's maybe a bit less vitriolic or a bit less divisive, that at the end of the day, within some reason, we are saying the same thing. It's just way harder to listen. I agree. It's way harder to listen to somebody who's just like a raving lunatic. You know, it's like, oh my God, what's just PCP? What are you doing, man? That's just, but I mean, I appreciate that. I guess the main thing is I just, I don't know. I have a hard time accepting compliments. A lot of it is that every day I wake up and if someone says something nice about me, I don't think, oh, you know, they've said something nice about me, I'm really grateful for it. I think, okay, I'm glad that they feel that way, but I still, I can't like slack. I don't know. It's like, I feel like every time something good happens, I feel like it's a reason for me to like motivates me to not slack. Like I think about that, just like making sure I'm putting forth an effort and that I'm, presenting myself in the best way that I know how to. I don't know. It's really weird. I'm just weird with compliments. Just you got to get used to it sooner or later watching the channel. I'm just not good with them. Hashtag Mondays, and that's it. The other part is not in the hashtag. With Mr. Happy. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hey, man, I was curious how you feel about 8 and 10-2. Generally, these games are looked at with disdain. However, these two are my favorite in the mainline series. What are your opinions on these games as a whole, and why do you think the community hates them so much? So I'll say 2 things. One, I'm okay with Final Fantasy 8. It was my first Final Fantasy, so it probably gets a little bit of slack, but it's far from my favorite. And 10-2, I like the job system. I don't like most everything else about it. And that's as someone who has played it again recently-ish, like a few months ago to get my Platinum trophy. But the question is, so what are my opinions on these games? Final Fantasy VIII is a lot of good ideas wrapped in a not great execution. Unfortunately, with RPGs, progression systems are one of the most important things. And when you have enemies that level with the player, it doesn't really achieve the whole preserving the difficulty thing that well most of the time. And Final Fantasy VIII is, I feel, another good example of that. The fact that you're way better off not leveling and instead powering yourself up through the junction or through your higher tier weapons makes the actual moment-to-moment reason to do any encounter feel really unsatisfying. And the more you understand about its progression systems, the worse that feeling gets. I know some people have an issue with the story, with the kind of some of the cop-out elements of it and some of the inconsistencies. I don't. I actually think the story's fine. Every time I play Final Fantasy VIII, it's kind of just a wild ride, and I'm kind of all for it. I have a harder time, honestly, with Final Fantasy VII's pacing after Disc 1. It feels like as soon as Aerith passes at the end of Disc 1, that the pacing just completely falls off, like, so hard. Final Fantasy VIII, I don't really get that feeling nearly as much. So they both kind of sit middle of the pack for me. Final Fantasy VIII just has a lot of really underwhelming support structures to its actual RPG experience. And Final Fantasy VII, for me, has a few of those, but it's really more of just the pacing of the second, I'll say half. Honestly, Disc 2 and 3 barely even feels like half the story every time I play it. Like, I just kind of tune out a lot. And then 10-2, I couldn't be asked to care about the story. It just doesn't work every time. I don't think the humor works. I don't think it's aged well. I don't think I liked it when I was a kid. I honestly don't know what was going on. I don't like the strictness of the story percentage, like not being, just having to read every dialogue, specific dialogues, how it's way too contrived and just not fun, especially without a guide. However, why the community hates them so much, I've always said this, especially with a long-running franchise, when people like or dislike a game in a series, myself included, we tend to really get down on the games that we don't like, especially when there's so many games and there's so many opinions in regards to how people feel about each game. People are really bad at accepting someone else's opinion. And yeah, I mean, on the internet, you've seen it just a million times over. So they almost start to hate it more because of that reason, and they feel like it's cool to hate it in a sense. I mean, we've seen that for years. It's being cool to hate something. And I feel like that's where a lot of the kind of excess hate comes from for almost anything. This isn't even about Final Fantasy anymore. It's kind of just about everything in existence. I mean, I'll even give you a great example. So I'm not a huge fan of Nier Automata, specifically the gameplay. I feel like the attacking is just really unsatisfying. It's kind of like, it just, there's no weight behind it. You just don't feel good about any of your swings. I hate holding the shoot button the whole time. But exploring around the world, the progression systems, even the story, which some people think is contrived, but I actually think is pretty good. I think it's masterfully put together in a lot of ways. I just can't actually, it doesn't have a good feel to me. So if I can't sit there and feel good playing it, the story doesn't make it up for me. When I give a level opinion about that and someone goes, LOL, trash take, I'll be like, you know what? Fuck you. Nier Automata, one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. It's fucking terrible. You guys think that just because it's overly contrived that it's actually fucking good when it's not. Their gameplay system is ass. Swinging your sword sucks. Holding the shoot button sucks. The bosses just all shoot balls at you. Yoko Taro's a sham. Move on with your life. Real trash take. And then I don't even feel that way. But out of the spite of just people being like that when I give them a level-headed, I just do that. Like, but some people feel that way all the time. So I feel like with any video game, any media, anything that someone can have an opinion about, the community hating is not the majority. It's the people who feel like it's cool to hate it. There are a lot of people who love Final Fantasy VIII. There are people who absolutely love Final Fantasy X too. And I may not be among them. I know they're there. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Lollyho Haps. Hi. 2 quick questions and one more deeper question. More deeper. Interesting. One, are you enjoying your trip into Gielinor? Isn't there an E in there? Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not like I pronounce or know how to spell all the shit in OSRS anyway. And the journey that is OSRS, I thought about maybe starting a clan. So no, I just started a clan. I joined a clan with a few other streamers and Sophie. She's in there as well. And it's been good. I like having, again, that sense of progression. I like really rare drops as well. I'm a shiny hunter, and basically OSRS is a game full of really low drop rates. So it's like I'm shiny hunting in a sense, but I'm like skilling up along the way. Right now I'm working through Winter Tot to 99 fire making. Maybe I get the Phoenix pet, 1 in 5,000 chance. Probably not. I got everything else. Tome of Fire, Pyromancer set, the gloves, a bunch of burnt pages, the torches, all that. But, I want the 1 in 5,000 Phoenix, and while I will not stay there after I hit 99, I'll then go to another location and be like, okay, well, what about trying to get the squirrel from the agility courses? Let me work on my agility. So I enjoy that. Also, everything's really intertwined, so, like, you really want, like, 70 wood cutting, so you can do a quest, but then that quest may require, you know, like, I don't know, 30 something thieving. So like the intertwinedness of the questing is also something that's really good. So I've been enjoying it. Like I said, I'll have a more in-length video about my kind of early experiences with it and where I'm at right now. True, out of all the kitties, is the orange one your stereotype looking for one brain cell? Yes. Cinnamon's not in here right now, but he is 100% a one brain cell cat. 3, looking ahead, if the quantum difficulty idea works out... Oh, I get deeper question. I get it. Deep dungeon. Do you think they may or may not put other spots to make it a mainstay? They've already said that variant dungeon is going to be receiving treatment not dissimilar to quantum. So, very curious to see how that ends up going. If anything, I'm wondering if variant itself will work like the deep dungeon, and then the criterion will have a quantum difficulty instead, and thus you can earn things in the variant dungeon to challenge the quantum difficulty criterion, etc., etc. But yeah, no, if it succeeds, they are definitely doing it in more places. And honestly, even if it doesn't succeed, they're probably already planning it in a few places anyway to see if it works in different types of content. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, dude. Hi. Just want to respond to last week's question about wanting remakes, remasters for RPGs. I don't even remember, dude. I forget these questions. I don't forget every question, but I forget most of them. Rather than waiting for the off chance for a company to release a remaster remake, would you be open to emulating? Don't know if it would cause issues for the creator, but it would be easier, faster to play. So I have not a problem with emulating. I have a problem with a lot of the games being PlayStation 1 games. PlayStation 1 has not aged well. And at that point, you don't just need to emulate them, you also need to mod them. And if I'm just going to do that, I might as well just wait for the remaster, in my opinion. I'd rather not be the one responsible for needing to fix a lot of the issues that I actually have with PS1 games. But I mean, that's not all of them, but it is like a large portion of the games that I want to see remastered. They exist from the era where disk loading times were only bearable by comparison to everything else happening in our lives. And now going back to them feels like some weird form of just you know, just CMB torture. It's just, I don't want to do it. Hashtag Monday with Chef Happy. Hey Happy, hi. Since we're on the topic of cooking and seasoning, do you have a kitchen pepper go-to spice? I do what we call the Guga mixture. I've always done the Guga mixture, even before Guga was a thing. Salt, pepper, garlic powder. It really depends though, because before COVID, I didn't do a whole lot of cooking. I had, but I didn't do a lot of it. During COVID is when I really started, you know, sitting down and trying to figure out, you know, what was right, what worked. You know, that's when I started really experimenting with cooking more. And I found that just for just like generic food that I want to eat, I'll go with Old Reliable for stuff like that. But that when I start branching out into trying things I've never done before, I'm far more traditional in that sense. You know, like if I'm making, you know, egg fried rice, I don't want to do salt, pepper, and garlic powder. You know what I mean? Like I want to mince up garlic and put it in the oil for, you know, 15, 20 seconds before. I want to make sure I have fresh cut spring onions. I want to make sure that I have white peppercorns instead of black peppercorns, and then I'll have soy sauce that'll go around the rim. You know, I want to make sure that they're right. So saying that I have a set spice mixture to do in bulk is not it wouldn't be accurate, because I just don't like doing that. Sometimes also I just like mixing things up. Like maybe instead of doing like my white rice and like kind of more traditional like chicken base, and sometimes I'll decide I want to go a little bit spicier, and I'll just throw some like Tajin powder on the chicken, and instead of doing white rice, I'll make like a yellow rice or something like that. So I'll just like make really like simple substitutions. But no, I definitely don't have a go-to spice mixture, because I feel like I like cooking so many different culture foods that spice mixture just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense for anything other than, you know, just making a steak or just making a bunch of chicken breasts or something really simple like that. Hashtag waiting for actual relics. Mr. Happy, why you gotta hit me where it hurts? Hi, Happy. Hi. I just wanted to revisit what you mentioned being missing across a lot of content needing to be improved, and that is the leveling experience. You mentioned fates needing a boost, possibly other methods as well. While I agree the more leveling methods are great, I wish there were more reasons to do leveling content as someone with all max jobs. Think of some sort of over-leveling system, maybe getting a special currency of X amount per past 100, just an achievement for going over level 1,000. I mean, there cannot be power luck behind it. And that's a problem, because effectively it just becomes you have gained experience after level 100. Congratulations. And then when the level cap raises, it's not like that EXP is going to overflow backwards, which is really confusing. So do you just reset that every expansion and just see who's out there doing the most leveling in a sense? You know what I mean? Is because then it's just going to be about fate botters and whatnot. Like, you do a leaderboard? I don't think so. There needs to be a tangibly good reason. Like, I don't know, like maybe if you gained a level while doing a duty roulette, a level, like an over level, you got more tomes because you got it from that activity. Or maybe if you got it from fates, you would get more gemstones or something like that. Like you could probably work that in, but you'd really need to make sure that the systems were built around the idea of getting more. Like, I mean, I'm sure some people would be like, oh, well, how about your tomes are capped at 450, but if you go over a level, then you get, 10 tomes over your cap. And that way, if people who really want to grind it out that presents a whole different ball game of questions. Obviously, it's not much for Savage because honestly, nobody in Savage would dare try to waste their time over leveling to get an extra few tomes to get another piece, not in the current day. And then you raise the question like, well, then what if our raid tiers had more gear scaling so that it was more difficult? You really need to collect that. Yeah, it's just too many facets that come into play. If it's just doing it for the sake of doing it, in my opinion, isn't good enough. There needs to be a good reason inherently to do it, and then having the ridiculous achievements after the fact is what works. And then even then you have to it's a lot of factors to consider. So inherently, it's not like it's an impossible idea. It's just not an automatically good idea without considering the ecosystems around what that actually means. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hey, you said hello. I said hi. Hello. Hi. Two hello. Okay. Not sure if you mentioned this recently, but what is your stance on the fact that FanFest announcement seems to be delayed? It's not. August is when we should have gotten it, but we always get it during a live letter. So, okay, let me rephrase. Let me start over. My prediction would have been a January FanFest, still is. And with that, it would have been on pattern to get the announcement in August. There are no live letters in August, so unless they do it at Gamescom or just do it in general, then it will technically be delayed because they'll wait for the next live letter, which is likely in September and not in August. But yeah, I think they probably should have just... They even said FanFest announcements coming soon. Like, they're aware that everyone's super aware that it's pretty weird we haven't had one now. But only because July was slightly too early by pattern. And August is on pattern, but there's no time to release it. So now it has to come after pattern. It's weird and honestly completely irrelevant. But it's also possible that it's technically in February, which is not that far off from my prediction. And is not even off, like, timing in any way, in which case September announcement would actually be the logical time to expect it. So, no, it's not off. It's only off if you've already convinced yourself that FanFest will happen at a certain time. Then it's definitely off. But yeah, that's it. We have an announcement around X2, X3. Yeah, with 6 months, and then we should be getting patch in December or January, and it'll happen around there. Yeah, no, that's still pretty much on pace for when we should normally expect them. Oh, I also noticed any prediction for new tank and DPS. I think predicting is completely pointless. I think wanting something makes more sense. Like, I want a dual shield tank. I'll say it. And DPS, just give me my Puppet Master. I don't care if they keep saying it's going to be a limited job. Don't do any. Just don't do that. Just let me. I'll come and design it myself. Okay, I got this. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hi, Happy. Hi. Hope all is going well. Thank you. So playing as much Final Fantasy as you do, I have a two-part question. Who is your favorite 14 character? Just a character you feel is well-written and enjoyable. And part 2 is with the FF series as a whole. Who would be your all-time favorite? I'll do all-time favorite first. Okay, this is going to sound really weird. But my all-time favorite Final Fantasy character has changed a lot. For a while, it was Shadow from Final Fantasy VI. I like the mystique behind the storytelling. Final Fantasy VI does not give you all of the story details. There are kind of secrets around the world they have to find, and Shadows is one of the more cryptic ones. Always really enjoyed that as a kid, and as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate it more. But there's also someone else I've grown to appreciate more, and it's somebody who a lot of people actively hate, and it befuddles me. And I think that people actively hating him actually ended up making me like him more, to the point where I actually do feel comfortable saying he is one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters. I don't know if he is my absolute favorite. I'd have to really sit down. But the first name that came up when I read that question was Hope from Final Fantasy 13. It never made sense to me how many people complained about this kid trying to process his mother's death that he witnessed in front of him being a major point of his character progression, when he's a kid who watched his mother die in the middle of a war he didn't technically know or want anything to do with, but she wanted to be strong. Like, there's so many facets to it, and the fact that he is able to grow, to process and grow through that, even if like it's kind of one note for a while, like that's the one thing driving him throughout several chapters of the story, throughout a lot of chapters of the story, is trying to befriend the people who he's kind of been forced into the situation with, while simultaneously processing how he's going to, handle the person who he actually blames for his mother's death in the first place, especially when they themselves have a behavioral attitude problem of trying to be more than they actually are, and thus getting people hurt in the process. Like that, I've especially over time grown to really appreciate the way that Hope is written and the way that he actually grows through it and gets better. 13-2, one of the stronger points I also think is actually seeing Hope grow into an adult and have a more direct role in everything going on. So yeah, that actually that worked for me. For 14, it's a little tougher because the character who's kind of gone through it all is Alphino. But I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out because he's gone through the role where he's completely naive. He thinks way too much of himself, overestimates his power and his reach and his ability to change things, and has to really be broken down in order to be rebuilt into somebody who is a little bit more level-headed and is someone who understands the world a little bit better. Somebody even said in one of my other comment sections, he's actually not too different from Wukalamat in that regard. We're given way more time and way more condition with which to see him grow. And he was also handling events that were way, way outside of the scope of like what he was used to dealing with in the first place. So he was kind of up against it regardless. So it's kind of, to me, it feels like a bit of a cop-out to say Alphino. But I do really enjoy, like, the thing is, you give a character that amount of time, you give a character that amount of support. I mean, just going through Heavensward with Alphino and seeing how he latches on to the figures around him in order to become a better person and have something a little bit more to strive for, goes a really, really long way, because then that eventually extends into the other characters that he interacts with. And you get to see the change. And it doesn't mean he's flawless and he doesn't have self-doubt occasionally. So there's a lot of like really kind of human ebbs and flows to the way that his the progression of his personality and his character moves. And I think given enough time, it's way easier to do that with a character. But I think it's probably Alphino. I just think he brings a lot to the table. Nowadays, he's just kind of squandered and wasted. He's been through his entire story progression, and he just kind of says things now. So it's like he's just kind of past his usefulness in terms of the story, except for showing up to fill a trust slot. But that part of his story, yeah, I felt like worked really well. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Good day, Haps. Good day. Do you have much experience or thoughts on wireless peripherals? I sure do. Specifically around mouse or headset, in terms of audio delay. My headset has no audio delay. So, wait, let me read the rest. The reason I'm asking is I've always played games wired, but wouldn't mind exploring wireless if it's feasible. Wireless technology has come a long way in general. I had really bad experiences with wireless technology in the earlier days when everyone started trying to go wireless, and it turned me off of them for like most of the time. But the one thing I've never really struggled with is headsets. Like the worst wireless headset I ever had, what is it? The Logitech G800? I don't know, because the mouse is the G600, right? Like, I don't remember there's an old Logitech headset that I was like, wow, this is the best thing I've ever put on my head. And then it would disconnect every like 20 minutes. It was the worst experience with wireless technology I think I've ever had. Not even just not even like amongst other headsets, like ever, was that Logitech headset. But my SteelSeries headset's been fine. Yeah, sometimes you get like a disconnect, but delay? No, I don't really run into delay. And for mice, I know plenty of people who play with wireless mice. I have the Aerox 9 SteelSeries mouse, and that's why you can use it wirelessly. I don't, because of that old stigma, but I've heard nothing but good things about the people who own it and do use it wirelessly. The problem then is, oops, forgot to charge it, middle of the mechanic, and my mouse dies. So that to me is the bigger thing. But I think that regardless of whether you're going with SteelSeries or another product, I think we're in the era where being afraid of wireless's performance is it only matters if you're buying like a $20 mouse from like Best Buy. Then I would expect problems. But for any sort of a bit more fine-tuned piece of technology that's above $50, $70, $90 and beyond, you're probably looking at something that is mostly reliable, and you probably won't have any issues with stuff like that. But yeah, regardless of SteelSeries or not, I think I would just, if I were you, I would try to develop more trust with wireless now because it's just gotten so much better. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Good evening at the time of writing. Good evening at the time of answering. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. I play Summoner and Machinist. I'm so sorry. Mostly in general. Harder content. If Summoner doesn't get reworked, do you think the cooldowns from our 1 or 2 minutes would need to be increased to expand and provide more space on the existing systems to potentially add more flavor? I'm not going to lie. I think Summoner is about to get reworked again. I think a lot of people expect that a lot of jobs are probably about to be reworked. I don't think that as many are going to get reworked as people think, even with the comments from the devs. But I think Summoner just needs to be reworked. The system they built, it had room to grow. It doesn't really have room to grow anymore, and that's where we get, what is it, Solar Bahamut, which nobody wanted. I think they need to open up a system. Honestly, I don't think Summoner needs to have the system in place it has. I think Summoner spells just all need to be summon themed. Like if every time you did an attack, like let's say that Ruin wasn't Ruin. It was like Ramuh coming out and shooting one of his lightning bolts at the target or something like that. Or let's say that, Fester wasn't Fester. It was like a Shiva Eggy and it snaps and does like a little, like icicles just like stab in at the enemy. The amount of flavor that's available to be added is good, but the gameplay rotation wouldn't change much. Like you probably wouldn't be able, I don't think you can expand much on that. So that's where I think they probably need a little bit of a rework. And I know some people want Carbuncle to be a bit more useful as well, because Carbuncle is just kind of, he's glam. I mean, let's just say it for what it is. And there are other things they could do, but I think Summoner probably needs a bigger facelift than some of the other jobs do, because there's so much flavor. I know it's not lore accurate. I don't care. I just don't. It needs more flavor. All right, that wasn't the last question, but the last question is, why do I need to do a 2-factor authentication every time? That's how most 2-factor authentications work. There's almost no site that I'm on where I can completely skip 2-factor authentication, specifically through an authenticator. There are some sites where you can choose to, like, they'll send you a text, and then, if you don't want to do the text it'll be like, remember me for 30 days, so that way it's not permanent, and then you have to do it again because it forgets. But that's pretty normal for 2-factor authentication. But that covers all the questions from this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. So thanks everyone for asking. Be sure to put your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see all of you in the next one. Until then, take care.